This is a sportsy media production, part of Quiet Loud Studios, the podcast network where reflection meets amplification.
Hello to everybody. Hello to all the listeners of the RAV podcast, Raw, Authentic, and Vulnerable. As always, thank you to everybody at Sportipreneur for creating this platform for me, allowing me to come on and continue sharing my story, allowing people to come on and share their stories. And the best part is that there are no preset questions, so everything is going to happen as it should, as it's supposed to, as organic as possible. Don't forget at the end of the episode here to like, subscribe, follow, and certainly be sharing. Again, it is my purpose, my mission here to continue to normalize the fact that we all struggle. It is not just 1 in 5, it is 5 in 5. You are not alone out there. And so thank you for tuning in once again to the RAV podcast. Today, a very special guest is joining us, Amy Ford from up in Canada. She is in the same space as myself in regards to working with hockey players on mental performance. So that can be it for the introduction. Amy, now, even though I have introduced you already, can you, in a nutshell, introduce yourself to the listeners, please?
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here today. So my name is Amy Ford. I have the Flow State Unleashed program, and this was created out of my journey, my own personal journey. I struggled a lot with anxiety in my life, and I also love jiu-jitsu. So trying to overcome my anxiety in order to perform well in jiu-jitsu competitions and travel and compete in Portugal and Vegas has been a really big driving force for why I created this, because it allowed me to learn, practice everything that I'm implementing and see that it works. And so, now I'm a purple belt in jiu-jitsu. I'm still training actively. And then I've created this program to help hockey athletes, because there has been a very specific need for hockey athletes to overcome anxiety, boost their performance and confidence on ice. So it works really well. It's been a really nice mesh.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being here today. I know you and I had connected a couple of weeks ago, got on a call, and I think we asked each other if we could go on each other's podcast. So I'm certainly looking forward to the opportunity to come and join you on yours. But in regards to the jiu-jitsu, what would you say has been the biggest help, the biggest benefit, biggest impact in regards to the anxiety that you had said you experienced and perhaps are still experiencing to this day?
There's so many layers to it because it's helped me in so many different ways. One, it immediately gets you grounded in your body. You can't be anywhere else in your head except in your body. Otherwise, you're going to get choked and strangled. You know what I mean? So it forces you to be right here, right now, right? It also has really helped with my confidence and my ability to overcome anxiety, because I started to say, like, okay, if I can sit through a class and then roll with a bunch of men, which is really intimidating to a lot of people, then of course I can go to the grocery store. No big deal, right? And it started to open up little parts of my life, because I was like, yeah, I can do hard things. And I started to be able to carry that in other areas of my life. It's also created a way for me to be social, because also being introverted, it's really hard to get out there. And so it's a really good way to practice being around people, right? So there's so many benefits to jiu-jitsu, and it makes me strong and healthy, and has created a new trajectory in my life, right? And brought me back to myself.
That's so important. I think what you said there in regards to coming back to your body, I think too many people are living in their minds. And as we know, doing what we do, that is not always a great place to be, in your head, in your mind, getting caught in the different thought patterns that present themselves, the negative thought patterns. So would you say then, prior to jiu-jitsu, that you didn't feel confident going out and doing those things that you had listed?
Oh, no. I was actually agoraphobic for 7 years. So I didn't leave my house. Actually, I was working I don't know if you're familiar with the Toronto area, but I was working in Toronto and living an hour away in Barrie. And so I was commuting every day, going down the highway. And this is when my anxiety really started to gallop away. And I ended up going on long-term disability from that position because I ended up not being able to make it to work. And then I was like, okay, I can't make it on the highway. So then your world slowly shrinks because you start avoiding the areas that cause that conflict in your body. You start avoiding those triggers. My triggers were everywhere all of a sudden. I was like, okay, can't get on the bus, can't get in the car, can't get around people. And I was like, I'm just going to stay home. And that's the basis of agoraphobia, right? And then all of a sudden you're just home. So yeah, it did. Like, I don't know why I started jujitsu, to be honest. Like, it was something way out of left field, but I saw my kids practicing and there was the burning desire inside of me, probably the voice of God saying like, go do jujitsu. Like, you need to go do this for yourself. Right. So, and it was a persistent voice in my head for like 6 months. I was sitting on the sidelines and it was the scariest thing ever because I was like, I hadn't really done anything. And if I did go out, I'd have like my support system, my ex-husband at the time, to help support me through panic attacks, or it would just be the most uncomfortable hour of my life being outside of the house, right? It would just like, that's how I operated for so long. But then when I found jujitsu, I was like, if I don't go to jujitsu, I'm going to regret not going. Like, I'm going to regret not doing this. And that's what I kept telling myself in order to get me out of that house. And that's how it was my bridge to getting out and getting better.
Awesome. Awesome. I'm so happy to hear that you're doing a lot better now in regards to the anxiousness that you were experiencing. Is there currently anything else that you're doing outside of jujitsu that has helped you and aided you in overcoming and better managing the anxiousness that you experience?
Yeah, 100. I think I actually forgot to mention this in my intro, but I'm certified now in neuro-linguistic programming. So this is the basis of my certification of how I help my clients and my athletes through their barriers. But this is one of the main tools that have really helped me overcome a lot of the triggers and anxiety. And it's just a way to like remap your unconscious mind. A lot of the times, the things that are coming up, your barriers, your triggers, are all rooted in your past. And if you can find a way to overcome them or at least neutralize the weight of the feelings, and that's the main part, it's like we attach weight to the experiences. So if we made a mistake on the ice or in your game or whatever, we're attaching shame, guilt, fear, sadness, to that experience. But that experience is getting attached to every other time you've ever experienced that. And if you're not properly clearing out all of those emotions, then they get heavier and heavier over time. So then your triggers and your confidence really starts depleting because it has this attached weight of all of these emotions. So through NLP, there's a way to neutralize these emotions. And it's such a release. It's such a relief because now you're not carrying it around. You're not changing your experience. You're just changing how much weight of the emotion you're attaching to that expression, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, it certainly does. Because I think all too often, not only athletes, but just people in general, is we find ways to label essentially everything. We're constantly judging every single experience that we find ourselves in, whether that's a good experience or a bad experience. But what I don't think enough people understand is the energy behind the labeling of good or bad or positive or negative. And typically we get caught. And when we are caught, it's typically when we're feeling something negative, a negative situation has happened. So obviously you don't have to go so into detail. I don't want you to spill all of your secret sauce in regards to how you approach and your skill set. But what would you say is like the base thing that you want your clients to understand in regards to their power and ability to create those new pathways and reprogram some of that unconscious blockages that they seem to have?
Yeah, there's again so many layers to this question. One of the most powerful things that I realized is like we all have an inner parent. We all have that, your intuition, your inner parent. Everybody has that voice that's always like kind, caring, supportive, encouraging. And the more we can lean into that voice and find it, because there is going to be chaos, there is that other one that's always destructive, that negative self talk, that negative self pattern. But if we can bypass that and always lean into that parent and practice leaning into that parent, that's one powerful way to start just mapping where you're getting your information and your guidance from, right? Because like it is a constant battle. It is a storm sometimes, right? But there's always going to be that inner parent that's always like, like a lifeline, like, help me, what do I do? Right? So that's one powerful way. The other thing too, it's like, it's really hard. Sometimes in my life, I've had these experiences. Like one time I went to San Diego and it was the best time of my life. Like I swear I was like lit, I was joy. I was finally like walking my path and coming back to myself, right? And then when I came back home, I experienced a little bit of depression because I was like, I want to go there. I want to feel that feeling again. I'm not going to feel that here. And one of my mindset coaches was like, but don't you understand? Like those feelings are inside of you all the time. Like you can tap into that emotion anytime you want. I'm almost crying now because as I'm talking about it, it's coming up. And that energy of those emotions, of those experiences are always inside of you. So, one of the most powerful things that we do in NLP is state elicitation. It's like taking that state, bringing up that energy, those emotions, those feelings of that past experience, and like anchoring that in. And that's one of the tools that we use to kind of neutralize the negative weight, right? Because then we can just have more experiences that we're drawn to that are positive, then it'll help us moving forward as well, right? Because sometimes athletes will actually reach back for the negative. We're always looking for, it's called the negative feedback loop. So we can always just be like, you're looking for proof of the negative. So you're always reaching back for the past that was sucky. Oh, I made a mistake, so I'm going to make a mistake again, right? But if we can practice reaching back for the positive, then it'll help lighten the load.
Yeah, for sure. And earlier you had mentioned that inner parent, right? The inner roommate, that safety, so to speak. Would you say that it starts out, if you've never tapped into it, would you say it starts out more as a whisper? Therefore, it's harder to hear, harder to believe, harder to trust. And over time, the more consistent you are in tapping into it, then that whisper then transforms into a shouting, a yelling, a screaming. And it's a lot easier for you then to recognize that intuition.
Yeah, it definitely, like at the beginning, you're like, oh, can I trust this? Is this true? Because sometimes you're just like, I don't know, like what the heck? But the more you lean into it, the more you practice. And like I said, it could be as simple as just understanding that there is a part of you that wants to always support you, right? So I know if I'm spinning out and I catch myself like negative thinking, I'll be like, no, 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 like enough away. And then I'll actually look for the positive one because it's like the only way you're going to get out here is by positive momentum moving forward, right? So I get caught up in that stuff too, still, right? But you have to catch yourself in your awareness and then find that parent.
Yeah, and from what I'm learning is, I think this is accurate. For every one positive thought that we experience, we will experience 9 negative. Maybe it's 7, 8, 9, but obviously a clear difference in between the two. And then for every 3, I believe it is, negative thoughts, or for every one positive thought, there will be like 3 negative ones to compound it. So if you want to overcome the negative, it doesn't just take, one positive thought, it's 2, 3, 4 until you can clear the negative energy and then bring in the positive energy. So currently in jujitsu, how are you finding that you kind of are putting yourself in the fire, so to speak, a place of discomfort? How has that made it easier for you then to relate to your clients that inevitably are going through the struggle, going through the discomfort? Do you find that it has become easier for you to be relatable to them?
100%. Because I'm practicing what I'm preaching. Like every day I'm going in there and it's a struggle. Like if anybody's done jujitsu, like you're going in there to strangle, you get grinded out into a fine dust. You check your ego at the door every day because you can go in there and get mangled one day by a white belt, and that's just your day, right? So you gotta roll with the punches with jujitsu. And yeah, and every single tool in my tool belt I use on a daily basis, even if it's just self reflection, journaling, or just another layer of understanding of how my unconscious programming is affecting my performance. Like right now I'm getting really big lessons on how your life is reflected through your sport, just because I'm going through a lot of really heavy stress, like life stress, like separation, like just everything. And it's just been really hard to find that the aggression in my fights when my nervous system is always being dragged down from stress, right? So there's a different intensity. So that's my lesson right now. And it's awesome because now I can help my clients if they are, a professional athlete and they are going through a stressful time. Is how do we separate? How do we then acknowledge, like, okay, if you are drowning in your life, how do we make sure that you can still perform really well in sport? And there's some clearing techniques and some letting go that I help them walk through.
Yeah, and I would imagine that that's got to be some of the most powerful work that they are doing. Obviously, you're providing the tools, the guidance, the support on it. But when it comes to the clearing, I don't think enough athletes understand how their performance, in a lot of ways, is a symptom of their life away from the sport.
Yeah.
And if they're not doing work away, then the chaos, the tension, the toxicity in their human life is going to find a way to bleed into their performance. But because they've just been so solely focused on sports, they're going to try and address the sport aspect and lose sight of the human part of them, the human emotions that they experience. That's where the real work, in my opinion, is that they've got the coaches, they've got their head coach, their assistant coach, their hockey coaches, right? So in a lot of ways, hockey is kind of taken care of itself. So it's more, again, about navigating life away. And the more you clear up stuff there, I've found in my direct experience and then with my clients now is it's a lot easier for you to be present and in the moment. And you can't find the flow states without that, right? If you're not present, you will never find the flow state. If you're not in the moment, you'll never find the flow state. So yeah, that's a powerful share there. I think more athletes out there, if you're listening to this, tune into life away from sports and you'll find that your sport will become a lot easier, more consistent, and more confident. What is like the common struggle for the clients that you're working with?
Oh yeah, it's the same theme. They attach a lot of weight to their mistakes and it's hard to let go. And I find like the clearing techniques that I do, as soon as that happens, their performance opens up. They can find that creativity. They can find that ease again. And the thing too is like with your unconscious mind, it's tricky. It's like somebody could just say one thing and then all of a sudden you're spiraling down. And it doesn't even have to be like everyone thinks like, oh, trauma, trauma, big trauma, big trauma. But no, it's like even if you are, this is just like a random example, but just say you're like waiting for your parents to pick you up from the airport and they're 20 minutes late and you haven't gotten a text from them. Immediately you're feeling abandonment, trauma. Even if it's just for 20 minutes, that little slight thing that your unconscious mind is like, oh, like now we're going to be worried that you're going to be randomly stranded everywhere you go, right? And you're constantly going to be looking for proof of that. So now you're spiraling down. Or if you're going skiing and you're headed out there and one of your friends is like, oh, I went skiing and I hurt myself. All of a sudden you're going to go skiing and you'll be like, oh my God, am I going to hurt myself? Like, was this really dangerous? Like all of a sudden you're spiraling down. But if somebody were to be like, oh yeah, like, you're going to have such a great game. You're going to have so much fun. It's going to be amazing. You're already in that spiral up where it's like, yeah, this is going to be amazing. You're not looking for danger. Your unconscious mind is constantly scanning for danger, for life-threatening situations, and it's attaching anything it can to anything. So when you take a hockey player and it's experienced any type of, it could even be like injury, and you'll see this because they'll start hesitating at the blue line, right? Like say something catastrophic happened there. Maybe they handed over the puck or they got checked there one time. And now all of a sudden, every time they're there, it's just like a slight hesitation. That's their unconscious mind kicking in, being like, something happened here and we're trying to avoid it, right? So it's just catching different parts of your game and bringing awareness to that so that you can spiral up and really have that flow come back into your body and your mind.
Yeah. Would you then say that because it sounds like what you're describing there is that when the negative situations like being 20 minutes late in regards to getting picked up at the airport, is there a way right there in that moment to release and not hold on and ultimately store those emotions in your body?
Yes, but it's kind of hard because like unconsciously, it's normally unconscious reactions, right? So you're not really fully aware of it until years later. You're like, why am I always worried about this? And then you map it back, right? But because obviously your mom would come and then you're picked up and you're like, oh, okay, great, we're driving, right? So all of these things kind of happen a little bit later. However, if something does happen, and say you're like obsessively worrying or thinking and you're having a hard time letting go of your performance and you're fully aware of what you need to let go of, right? Like you actually have to be fully aware of what you need to let go of. There's a lot of separating tools that we can use in order to you know, remove it out of your body, transform it. I'm sure you do a lot of the similar practices with your meditations, right? Of how to just separate from it. And so you can move on to the next.
Yeah, because I would say so much of, again, it's if you haven't healed the unconscious roots of the present moment struggle, then those present moment struggles are going to continue to happen. Shoot, I was losing what I was going to say. But yeah, I feel as though, okay, there it is. I found it. Meditation and how it has helped me in making the unconscious more conscious again. And I think all too often people get lost in categorizing or labeling their meditation experience. Oh, I don't know how to do it. I feel like I'm doing it wrong. And in the end, that's exactly what it is for me, is again making the unconscious more conscious again, so that when these situations happen, right, that it is no longer unconscious. I'm certainly, boom, in that moment aware that something is happening within me as a result of what took place out there. Whether somebody said something or somebody did something that didn't match my internal preferences, right? The more I meditate, I'm instantly able to recognize, oh, this is an unconscious pattern that is now popping up. And the more work I do at the root level, the new pathways present themselves in front of me, opposed to the old patterns trying to pull me backwards to negativity, to things that don't serve me any longer. So do you yourself have a meditation practice? And then are you providing that then for your clients as well?
Yeah, my meditation practice, I do meditate all the time. And even if it's a small 5 minute inner reflection, it's all day. I can't help it. Because once you kind of figure out how to do it and how to access the internal vibe of yourself, yeah, I have to. If I'm not checking in with myself every day, I'd be a wreck, right? And sometimes I even have to try to meditate to ground myself a little bit, or even after client sessions, I have to just quickly go into a meditation to clear the energy and make sure that I'm me and not carrying anything from my clients, right? So but yeah, that's a huge part, is walking through guided meditations. I think I'm gonna post on my Instagram saying we're going to the quantum field, when we work together, we're going up there. We can do a lot of change up there. This is kind of Joe Dispenza shit where you can go in and access your unconscious mind and get those answers and clarity that you need in order to let go and kind of remap everything. And then it just becomes quieter on the inside when you can start doing this. And you're totally right. It's kind of interesting because at the beginning of my healing journey, which really started about 3 years ago, I really needed a lot of NLP to help me get through all these layers, right? Because there was a lot. The amount of anxiety and the PTSD, all the stuff that I was carrying inside of me, that's why I was so anxious. But now it's to the point where now that I kind of have an understanding of how it works, and I use my fear as a flashlight. So if I'm ever scared to do something, it's okay, that's my block. Or why am I triggered? Why am I getting angry? Let's go in and figure out what the root is. And I don't rely on NLP as much because I can kind of do that work in the meditation state, like how you do, right? So
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah. And I would say the more you meditate, you kind of, again, I think it comes with an ending to the labeling of the experience of, if it, is it good or is it bad? No, you meditated. That is always going to be a good thing. It may not always go the way you think it's going to go based on how it went yesterday or how it went a week ago, and you had this profound mystical type of experience. I think you're doing yourself a disservice if you go into it with the expectation that every single time I meditate, it's going to be this massive event, when sometimes it's not, but I know that the more you put into that practice, it's going to transform every area of your life, and it's going to make it far easier for you to remain present throughout the day. And I think right now, when anybody hears meditation, they see them sitting down Indian style, hands like so. And there's so many other forms of meditation that isn't just sitting in that meditative state. Is there any other forms of meditation that you use? I know Jiu-Jitsu is a form of meditation, I would imagine, but is there anything else?
Yeah, like jujitsu, obviously, yes, 100%. Anything to get me in my body. Walking meditation, I really like. And that's where I hold an intention of how I want to be, feel, see, hear. Like you can put intentions behind your meditation. So if you are manifesting or praying or trying to pull something into your vibration, you can imagine you have that already and go for a walk. And that helps pull it in a little bit. I think for me, like it's really easy for me to disassociate and meditate. And so right now I'm trying to do more like grounding practices, to be honest, because I can be in la la land all day, like meditating and yeah. So we're trying to like ground. So you have to do like the balance, right?
Oh, for sure, for sure. And I think the grounding is it again, you're grounding back into yourself. So for me, the main tool that I use in order to do exactly that, to be grounded in myself and my masculinity, is breath work. And I went through this course 2 years ago, so I've got a lot of knowledge and wisdom through my willingness to apply what I was learning. But then I learned from somebody else that was like in India and doing all this breath work, and she had mentioned to me that it is not breath work if there's not a retention, meaning you're holding your breath, or you're doing these different types of locks. They're called Bondi or Bonda locks. I'm not sure if you've ever heard them, but it's a way for you to kind of like apply pressure or flex different chakras within your system, so that when you flex them, we'll just call it, you flex them and then you release and then you suck the air all the way up to your crown. That helps to clear these different blocks that we may not even be aware of, you know? So, in regards now for people that want to be more grounded, if you are ever doing breath work, different breathing techniques, but you're caught in your mind, in my opinion, then it's not even actually breath work because you're still in the clouds. You're not grounded back into yourself. So, if you're doing breathing exercises, I highly suggest for you to focus in on one area of your body and keep your focus there through the entirety of the breathing technique.
Mhm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, 100%. I remember I went to, okay, so 3 years ago, my goal was to go to St. Lucia. It was my first solo trip. And I was coming out of this like intense anxiety period. So I had like 6 weeks of NLP done, like one session a week. And I was like, my goal is to go on this trip. I have to get on this trip. I have to get on this airplane. And it was great. Like I got there. It was amazing. I ended up panicking in the airport. I got to St. Lucia and I was freaking out because I'm like, I'm in another country by myself, right? But the whole purpose of this was like my post separation trip. Like I felt like I really needed to do this. And it was at the Body Holiday in St. Lucia. And it was like this whole like kind of wellness. They had this like yoga retreat. And so I got these meditation sessions with this cute little lady. And I would show up to her classes. I got some one-on-ones with her and I'd be like vibrating. I'd be like vibrating and like holding my breath, so anxious. And she would like guide me through these like breath works and like showing me how to like breathe in and like let go, like letting it go out of my hands. And by the end of every session, I was so relaxed, so relieved. She helped me through so many blocks. And this was like my first experience learning about energy and releasing and breath work and how amazing it felt. Cause like literally every single time I'd show up, I'd be like vibrating. And one time we did like a meditating hike. So she showed me, she's like, like walk through the forest, like focus on the colors, like feel how the feelings of the earth feel under your feet, like touch some of the leaves, like how does it feel in your hands? So we did the senses and it was so nice. And I would never have been able to do that on my own. I've been like, I gotta go, like too anxious, danger, alert. But she really, really helped me. So that was one of my first experiences of like learning breath work. I do have to incorporate that more often. I hold my breath a lot lately. I'm like, but it's a work in progress.
Yeah, we can't do all the things all at
Oh
once,
yeah, I
right?
know. It's just so many different things to learn.
Yeah, and I think you had mentioned a couple of weeks ago when we were on that Zoom. Are you certified in Reiki? Is that right?
Yeah, I have my Reiki certification, my level 2.
Level two. And how many hours is that?
I don't know. I did 2 sessions, but I've done like a bunch of Reiki sessions. Like,
Okay.
yeah, trying to.
And have you up until now been able to incorporate that at any level in regards to your clients?
Trying to figure out how to like weave in some of the energy healing in to it. Yeah, like last year I went like all out energy healing. I was like, I'm an energy healer. But then I'm like, I think I have to incorporate performance and then somehow like add that sparkle of healing in somehow. So yeah, with marketing, I'm sure you realize too over the years, it's like you're always testing different things, testing how things go. But the energy healing is kind of baked in with NLP too. It's all about meditating. It's all about the mind body connection. It's all about tapping into your energy body and realizing that your thoughts, emotions, intentions all create your energy. And, it can be your driving force in your performance. And if you're not checking your energy, then it can affect your performance. Like if you're showing up angry and mad and like blaming everybody, like that's your energy. Your energy is in effect. You're in cause and effect. You're blaming everybody else. Like it's everybody else's fault. But we need to pull your energy back into being like a high performer, which is somebody who's dropping into flow state, who's taking accountability for your own actions, your own ways of showing up. Like that's you. You can only control yourself. So your energy is a huge, huge aspect. And it's just, it is you. Like that's all there is just your energy.
Yeah, we are literally energetic beings. And I would say this type of work is what athletes truly need. But I think, and I could be wrong, and I'm just speaking from my own experience in my time of working directly with sports psychologists. And I think we talked about it a couple of weeks ago is that when I was in that office, when I was in that room with the sports psychologist, he was always asking questions that were specific to my performance, whether that's in practice, in the gym, or in the games. But what I needed and what I wanted to talk about was, again, life away from the rink and getting him to understand that I'm struggling a lot. I am lost out there. I'm going through a divorce. I'm going through being away from my kids for 9 months at a time. Like that's the stuff I need to be getting out, releasing that so that I, again, can be more free in my performance. I know how to play. I've played the game for 30 plus years. I'm a professional and I wouldn't be a professional if I didn't have these physical abilities. But it's again more about clearing that stuff away so that again I can be a lot more present. So would you say in regards to the work that you do, the guidance that you provide, that you're, and this is the way I view myself, is like ahead of the curve? Because I think at some point sports psychology will come to an end, which will open up the door more to what you provide, what I provide, what I know other people out there are providing. And it's, I don't know what you want to label it as, is that mental performance, emotional control, life coaching, So would you say for yourself that you're a little ahead of the curve in regards to that?
Yeah, 100%. I've been wanting to do a post like this for a while, but I don't want to like knock anybody's profession. And I think that there is a reason, like there is a reason to use anybody out there, right? And from my experience, I tried psychologists, I tried counselors, I tried psychotherapists. No, but I tried drugs, I tried naturopaths, I tried everything to try to help me with my anxiety and confidence. The only thing that made instant change was NLP and hypno and this type of energy work. The other thing I want to mention too, it's like I actually just recently was going to go see a psychologist because of like I'm just getting separated. So there was a moment where I was like, and she explained her process, and it was like 6 weeks of working with her was going to be talking about and unpacking all of my trauma every week, like going, we need to understand, we need to understand, we need to map out, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I cannot talk about my stuff. The second you start talking about your traumas, you pull it up to the surface, you're giving old parts of yourself life that you don't necessarily need to, and you're experiencing it. So the thing with like NLP and the clearings that we do is we don't revisit anything. I don't actually want to talk about your problems. Like we don't actually need to. We just need to find the root cause, appease that person or that part of you, that little version of you, and then it's resolved. It's done. It's instant. We don't need to take this big whole like okay, like we don't do that. It's a personal, unconscious experience. As soon as we're able to appease that part of you by giving yourself forgiveness, love, letting it go, it's done. That easy. So that's the special like recipe with the work that I'm sure you walk your clients to with as well. It's like it doesn't have to be this big song and dance and like, and again, I'm not knocking the profession, like I'm sure that there's a lot of positives that come out of that, but we're going at it a different way that has helped me in a way that nothing else could have helped.
Yeah, simply talking wasn't doing it, because I feel as though simply talking keeps you on the surface. And there's so many people that are taking that surface level approach, but what they don't understand is outside of the root, if this is the root, there's so many layers that you would need to navigate to even begin getting close to the root. But if you can identify the root and just go there straight, all of the layers then dissolve. And it's like those same experiences aren't finding you anymore because you healed what was projecting out, which was calling towards you more of those things to navigate, you know? So again, are there sports psychologists out there that are doing that? I'm sure there are, right? But I would imagine that the mass majority of them are not. And so if you wanted to take that approach, it would take far more than 6 weeks to get to the root, because each layer might be a week, might be 2 weeks. It might be really dense, really heavy, really strong. And that's going to take 6 weeks from one layer, you know? So yeah, it's fascinating to think about, because that's the way I've been viewing it. And I've put posts out there on more on LinkedIn. I like to wrinkle some feathers on LinkedIn, but I've said that we need to put an end to sports psychology. Whether these athletes are aware of it or not, their life away is more problematic than their life in, you know? I love it. I'm happy that you're doing this type of work, not only with people, but with yourself. Because I think you stated it earlier, if you're not doing the things daily to ground yourself, then you're going to be chaotic. And how can I help somebody if I'm feeling all the tension, all of the negative energy, and I'm not able to then even create a safe space for them to potentially need to talk about things that are deeper, you know? So I applaud you. I acknowledge you and the work that you're doing. Unless you have anything else, I think that we're right around the 40-minute mark here. I've got a call coming up. But is there anything else that you would like to add? Any advice, any suggestions? And then after, if you could just let the listeners know where they can find you on the different social media platforms.
Yeah, for sure. So again, just reminding you that I have the Flow State Unleashed program. And the first part, like I'm sure you agree with this part too. It's like if you're an athlete or no matter what you're kind of pursuing in your life, the first step is understanding and becoming aware of what your roadblocks are. And that's my tagline, is recognizing your patterns in play. I have a performance assessment. So if you're kind of curious as to how to get started or where to get started, a performance assessment is perfect. It's then going to bring your awareness to where's your fear, where's your hesitation, what's holding you back, what has your focus right now. And then as soon as we can pull your awareness into what is going on in your performance, then we can work on moving past that and improving and dropping you into flow state. So I'm on Instagram, Facebook, and yeah, my website's Flow State Unleashed.
Are they searching for Flow State on Instagram, or are they searching for your name?
It's Amy Ford on Instagram. Maybe I should change it to Flow State, but we'll see.
Maybe this is your invitation to go ahead and do that. Alrighty, guys. Well, that was a powerful conversation. Thank you again, Amy, so much for coming on and sharing a bit about yourself and a bit about what it is that you do, and ultimately being vulnerable and sharing that you experienced anxiety. You experienced a life where you never wanted to leave your home, and the pain that was causing you. And now here you are, a more confident woman, still going through some chaos, as we all are, but you're leaning more into the darkness, leaning more into your own lights and creating more light in your own life. So again, thank you so much for being here with us today. Thank you to all the listeners. Again, like, subscribe, share, follow. Again, thank you so much to everybody at Sportipreneur for creating this platform. That'll be it for episode number 4 of the Raw, Authentic, and Vulnerable podcast. Stay tuned, and yeah, have a grateful day.
This is a sportsy media production, part of Quiet Loud Studios, the podcast network where reflection meets amplification.